is Monica McLean, and I'll be your moderator today. To begin this morning's announcement, the Premier will open with some remarks, and then we'll move into the question and answer period of the news conference, which is for media only. As you see, the Premier is joined by Leilani Kamainarika. She's the Associate Deputy Minister for the Department of Finance and Treasury Board, and she'll assist with some questions today. The embargoed copy of the material you've been provided is lifted when the Premier begins. And the Honourable Premier, if you'd like to begin today.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Our PC government was, of course, elected to fix healthcare, and we've made unprecedented investments in our healthcare system. We've hired more doctors. In fact, over 250 net new doctors are in Nova Scotia right now, and there's many more on the way. Many more on the way. In fact, actually. How do we know that? Well, we're opening a new medical school next September at Cape Breton University that will graduate 30 new doctors every single year. And they'll all stay in Nova Scotia. That's the deal. We're making it happen with that CBU medical school. In January, we're opening the doors to our International Medical Graduate Assessment Clinic, which will fast-track assessments for doctors that have been trained in other countries. So with that assessment clinic, no more internationally trained Canadian doctors, Nova Scotian doctors, working in the United States at prestigious clinics that can't have a path back to Nova Scotia. We're providing that path back for them. They will have a chance to have their skills and their competency assessed in a 12-week period instead of the old system. That was an 18-month assessment. And if they pass after 12 weeks, that's great. They can stay in Nova Scotia and practice medicine. If they don't, well, then they don't. But through this process, we can see around 45 new doctors every single year. This assessment center is the first of its kind in North America, and the entirety of North America is watching this. So between the Cape Breton Medical School, the International Medical Graduate Assessment Clinic, could see 75 new doctors every single year in Nova Scotia that we didn't have before. That's significant. That'll deal with the here and now, but it's also setting the province up for the long term, so we don't get back in this mess. We know we have to retain doctors, so support them in different ways. That's why we made the doctor's pension plan a reality. So all of these things are part of a big plan, and the plan is working. We've hired more nurses. We're training more nurses. We opened virtual care to every single Nova Scotian. That's working. We provided Nova Scotians with access to their own health records through the Your Health NS app. That is working. It's making a big difference. We've opened 31 primary care clinics at pharmacies and expanded the scope of pharmacists in Nova Scotia, so now they can do what they're trained to do. They can assess, they can diagnose, they can treat, and they can prescribe for certain illnesses. This is all making sure that Nova Scotians can get the care they need and they can get it faster. In fact, our pharmacists here in Nova Scotia have the broadest scope of practice in the world because of the leadership and the steps we've taken. So, look, things were bad in healthcare. They were really bad. It was in rough shape. But we've taken steps to, we had to get the soil ready. In the garden analogy, we had to get the soil ready. We had to till it. We had to plant the seeds and nurture them. But now we're seeing that they are growing. We're seeing progress now. We continue to have a plan to build a brighter future for all Nova Scotians. I know that when we, between the 2021 election and now, things have changed. The world's changed in a lot of ways. Healthcare was the number one priority facing Nova Scotians back then. It still remains a top priority for sure, but also is affordability. People are struggling with the cost of living for sure. The cost of living is having an impact on all Nova Scotians across the province. People are burdened by the higher cost of everyday items, and they feel it every time they make a purchase. The federal government, of course, has only added to this burden by increasing taxes and driving the cost of living up even further, hitting them with a carbon tax that hurts Nova Scotians. We know we've made our position and offered alternatives on that, and we'll continue to do that and look for some support from other leaders in Nova Scotia and other elected members as well. But we are taking steps. We've taken a number of steps. And of course, rolling out right now the unprecedented investment in our children. Free lunch for every child in our public school system. That's the goal. That's rolling out, and it's rolling out incredibly smooth so far. It's helping a lot of families and helping a lot of kids, and I know that will take some strain off families, because having to prepare a daily lunch, plan for it, prepare it, get it out the door, can be stressed. So there's now an option for parents who choose to take it, and they can pay for it or they can not pay for it, depending on what their own circumstances or decision is. It's a step on the way. So we've taken other steps. Of course, in indexing the personal income tax bracket's a very significant step. But today, I'm pleased to announce another step along the way to hopefully make life a little bit easier for Nova Scotians with a tax reduction. Beginning on April 1st, 2025, Nova Scotians will see a reduction in the provincial sales tax. We'll reduce the provincial portion of the HST by 1 percentage point. This will drop the tax in Nova Scotia from 15% to 14%. This is the first time in 14 years that a provincial government in Nova Scotia has changed the HST. Only this time that it's going down. We remember what happened the last time it changed, it went up. This time it's going down. So we have provided notice to the CRA. There's a requirement to provide at least 6 months notice. We've provided notice to the CRA that effective April 1st, 2025, the Nova Scotians will see the first sales tax cut in Nova Scotia's history. So when you combine that, and that's a savings for Nova Scotians in the range of, I think, $260 million a year that will be left in the hands of Nova Scotians. And when you combine that with the item that was in the budget that was passed, which was the biggest personal income tax cut that Nova Scotians have seen, then I think Nova Scotians will see that we're at a place now, and as part of the plan going forward, when we can start to see tax reductions and savings to Nova Scotians. So HST is a significant source of provincial revenue. It's actually the second largest provincial-owned revenue source. Provincial personal income taxes, of course, being the highest, but but both of these sources of revenue fund all the services that we do. So it's important that we find a balanced approach, between maintaining the ability to deliver services, to deliver for Nova Scotians, but also be respectful of Nova Scotians when it comes to tax time. So lowering the HST will make things more affordable for all Nova Scotians, everybody who purchased something. So that's why we're taking this step. We're mindful on the revenue impact and the need to provide services, but we know that the lower HST is a solution for Nova Scotians. So thank you for being here today, and happy to take any questions.
Your health minister just a few weeks ago told the health authorities that the province is facing a staggering deficit. FOIPOP showed that message actually came from your office. When I look at the fiscal plan that you put out in the spring, it shows just a string of deficits in the years ahead. How can Nova Scotia afford this?
Yeah, it's look, this is the balancing act of governing, right? So if you look at the first 3 budgets we tabled, so I think if you add those first 3 budgets up, there was cumulative deficits of over $1 billion. I think it was $1.2 billion in deficits that were tabled, budget time. When the actuals were calculated at the end of the year, we look and see what actually happens. I think when you look across those 3 years, if you add up the actuals, it's actually a small surplus, somewhere $400 or $500 million, right? So we've taken deficit budgets and resulted with surpluses at the end. And along the way, incredible investments in Nova Scotians. And I know some members didn't like those. They called to those additional appropriations as a bad thing. They're all investments in Nova Scotians. They're not a bad thing. They're good things. So between the deficits that were tabled and the additional investments, we still managed to produce surpluses. So I think when you look at what's happening in the economy, a combination of the management of the budget of the government process and the investments, if you make the right investments in people, they will pay off. And I believe that at this point in time, with where we're at on stabilizing the healthcare system, with some of the other investments that we've caught up on, like we had a lot of catching up to do in this province. There was underinvestment in a lot of areas for a long, long time. but we had to try to catch up on that. And now we're to a point that the next investment that we can make, the next best investment we can make, is back into Nova Scotians to keep that money in their hands. They'll know what to do with it. So we have to do it. We're going to do it.
Staggering
To
deficit.
account for that $260 million revenue loss.
It's an investment in Nova Scotians. So I believe that if you make the right investment in Nova Scotians, that those investments will pay off. And I think we've seen that with the investments we've made. So it's money left in the hands of Nova Scotians. They know what to do with it.
Come out of the budget if you don't have $260 million coming in.
Yeah, well, it'll be part of the budget process. I think that the province is in a good place. Our economy is growing. Our revenue is growing for a number of reasons. This is the time to invest in Nova Scotians, and I'm not going to be ashamed to do it.
You won't say what area will suffer the loss of that $260 million.
We believe don't forget too, now there's two tax cuts, right? Two significant tax cuts, right? The indexing of the personal income tax is also significant. So these are big numbers for sure. I believe that with how we've been managed the finances of the province and the investments that we made in Nova Scotians, that these are good investments that will pay off.
That message from a few weeks ago that the province was facing a staggering deficit, that wasn't true?
No, you saw the numbers. But so the budget, like the budget goes over a year, right? So I think the first quarter numbers, they don't always include all of the income tax adjustments from the federal government, right? So I think there's a bit of a catch up on the economy stuff, on the economy side. But look, I won't be ashamed to invest in Nova Scotians. I was always upfront with Nova Scotians that where we were at, the holes we were in would take time and they would take money. And I think what we've seen is the investments that we've been making in Nova Scotians are pushing the economy forward, and we're seeing revenue growth from that. So, look, I'm confident in our ability to manage the finances of the province.
Churchill promised an HST cut a few months ago, and your finance minister at the time said that that was a bad idea. What's changed your mind?
Well, 2% is a different number than 1% too, right? So, look, we just have to look at these things. The passage of time, as things develop, we're always looking for opportunities to invest in Nova Scotians, and we're always looking at what's in front of us at that point in time. So we're seeing progress on a number of fronts. I'm optimistic about the future of this province. The potential to grow our economy is very, very significant. On the energy file, in the critical mineral space, the natural resources potential in this province is very, very significant. But our economy is growing. Communities are doing well, right? So we have a responsibility to Nova Scotians to make sure we're ready for that growth, for sure. That's investment in infrastructure and roads and all those things. That's critically important. But I just think we're at a point in time where our taxes are holding us back. And if we can address those, then we can unleash more potential.
Maybe a question for Leilani, but does this require legislation?
Yes, so there are a couple of requirements we have because we have an agreement with the federal government. We have to give notice, which we've done. And then we do need to legislate the change. So the tax is effective April 1, 2025. So that gives time for that legislation.
You gave notice like a few weeks ago, is that right?
So the notice, we're required to give 120 days notice. So we're actually ahead of time on that.
When was notice given?
We just sent the notice.
This morning when you came out, you announced a reduction in the HST, and you immediately went into several minutes of talking about health care. Is your concern...
the opposite. I started on healthcare and went to HST, but okay.
Is your concern that you have a contradictory message here, that you're reducing government revenues and there may be a perception out there in the public that still more needs to be done on health care and that money needs to be spent on that?
I think our obligation to fixing healthcare is fully intact. I'm obviously committed to that. I know there's more to do for sure. I also know that we've made significant investments, and some of those investments take a little bit of time for sure, but we're on a good path, right? So I think we have to let some of those investments mature a little bit for sure. But we saw, like in September, the highest ever attachment to family doctors from the list, right? Because of steps that have been taken over the last couple of years. So we're committed to healthcare. We're committed to education. We're committed to all these things that are our primary responsibilities. At the same time, we're also recognizing that there are needs of Nova Scotians around affordability, and their taxes are high and punishing. And we can do a little something about that, so we're going to do a little something about that.
The factors that made the province land on 1% versus the 2%.
What's possible. So we have to balance. We just have to balance. We have to be responsible with the public purse of Shore and find the balance. And we would like to do more for sure. But we do what we can. I always say we do what we can. We always wish we could do more for Nova Scotians, but we do what we can, and sometimes we do a little bit more. That's how we have deficit budgets, because we try to go a little more. But I think that, you know, if you look at what's happened over the last couple of years, our province there's lots to be optimistic about in our province, a lot.
You mentioned the additional appropriations over the last number of years, and some of that did go to healthcare, but the majority of it went to other things. Why did you wait for an election to make this tax cut? You arguably could have done it earlier.
No, is there an election?
You're not?
I'm not aware of one, but
Near the end of your term, at the very least,
we're
even if you're not calling an election this
We're at
weekend,
a point-
you're facing one next year.
We're at a point in our mandate where we can do additional things. So obviously, the holes we were in were pretty significant. Like it's staggering how bad the healthcare system was, and the trajectory that it was on was really, really scary, right? So we've been able to stabilize that. We've made significant investments. We've been able to roll out things that are important that nobody else did. Nobody did a school lunch program for kids. We did it, right? Nobody was really investing in the infrastructure of this province. We're doing it, right? So once we got to a point where now we can look at what's the next best investment, and obviously investing back into Nova Scotians is something that we've been anxious to do, and now we're at a point where we can do it.
I also want to ask you, just sort of to harp on the election, but the Liberal leader wrote a letter to the Lieutenant Governor asking him not to allow an election to take place if you call one this weekend, because you haven't given a sufficient reason for having one. He's saying that you should have to give a sufficient reason if you call an election. What do you make of that?
I didn't know about that, but if I was one of the Liberal leader or the opposition leader, I wouldn't want an election either.
You recently wrote an email that went out to grade 12 students where you congratulated them on how far they've come and encouraged them to think about their futures. Why did you send that letter out?
I want Nova Scotian students to know. I want Nova Scotians to know this is a great province. The potential in this province is absolutely remarkable, and there is a place for everyone to find their way in this province. So I want students to know at the highest level of government, at the Premier's office, we care about them. We want them to stay in this province, and there are significant opportunities for them.
Why was this the right timing to send that letter out to them?
Just it's the part of the academic calendar, right? We want them to be, as students are starting to think about what am I going to do, right? And those are tough decisions. Both my kids went through both of those. Like, those are tough decisions for young people to make. And I just want them to know there are lots of options. So as you're thinking about what's next for you in your life, just know that there are lots of options in this province.
Before, or is this the first time?
No, it's the first time. This is actually something, when I went to the Southern Governors meetings, this is something that the governor of Georgia told me that he does. And I thought, wow, what a statement to make to students that you care about them. And I immediately told the team, we need to do that, wrap our arms around Nova Scotia students.
Okay. Election this weekend, Mr. Premier?
It's not something I've decided. We're just focused on executing for Nova Scotians. Obviously, there are events in the world, right? So I think as government, it's our responsibility to be conscious of events that can impact Nova Scotians. And the turmoil in Ottawa can have a big impact on Nova Scotia. We're seeing that impact already, right? And how we're getting shortchanged on significant issues like the isthmus and the fisheries issue. Like, we're really getting shortchanged on a lot of things. And I believe that is because the federal government is more focused on votes in other parts of the country. Quebec. If that isthmus was in Quebec, they would be funding it, as they should. And I guarantee you that every single elected member in Quebec would be standing up for Quebec. But here we are in Nova Scotia. I haven't seen a single Liberal member of Parliament stand up. I certainly haven't seen the leaders of the opposition or opposition members stand up for Nova Scotians. So I believe that is a factor. And it could be that we need to send a message to the federal government that Nova Scotians are united on what matters to Nova Scotians, and take a strong position to them when we're negotiating with them and talking about different issues. Because right now the positions of the province of Nova Scotia, the government positions, are being undermined by elected officials in this province, and that is giving Justin Trudeau and his crew the ability to shortchange, and actually the right in some ways to shortchange Nova Scotians. I think it's absolutely wrong. I'm totally watching that, and I'm looking at what else is possible on affordability. So certainly it's something we're thinking about. How do we put Nova Scotia in the strongest position, and we'll keep that in focus.
Premier.
Thanks.
That concludes our event. Thanks everyone for attending today.